Okay. Me, myself, I'm Brother Maimutsa of the Black Community Coalition for Justice and Self-Defense. I was looking pretty much forward to today's event, as the question is really a very important one to me, and it also touches beyond religion, other ideologies. From my point of view, like you also said, Brother Gerald, liberalism and all these developments, for me, is like the secularization of religion from state was important for the bourgeois people to be able to get the power that was before connected to religion. So they had to separate it to push through their own ideology of capitalist liberalism and so on. Right. So in a way, this is a step that from the African point of view needs to be pushed back somehow. Yeah. From the European point of view and this imperial religions that had developed so much power and were also the drivers of slavery and colonialism all over, it was more or less inevitable to plead for secularization to get means of power in the first place. Yeah, so far. And also very important, the idea not to have again a complete ideology ready-made for people to just take over blindly, to follow dogmatically as the solution that will never work.
Yeah. Yes, thank you. Thank you. I'm just reading from Sister Charlene, who is talking about here. She says, Gerald knows my skepticism about all religions. Of course, I always find the presentations enlightening and educational. I live in a country with 9 different indigenous nations who all have their own spiritual practices. It is settler colonialism that brought religion and proceeded to cause linguistic and cultural genocide. And she says, yes. Just as the idea of the state is anathema to me, the idea of religion is anathema. So what is now the difference between religion? Should we use that word religion, or is it better to talk of spirituality or spiritual practice?
Okay, I know Charlene is very, has this view of religion, and it's healthy, but this is what I mentioned before. She said about settler colonialism brought religion. I'm saying that what is referred to as religion, or what we know as religion, is really a colonial term, right? Yeah, it's a colonial term because, as I said, indigenous societies and African societies, indigenous African societies and so on, did not have did not separate religion
from life.
From life. Yeah, it wasn't something that they had. It was, everything was a totality. So I have no one rejecting the concept of religion as you know, from that the Europeans imposed on us. But it's important. I don't think you can separate spirituality from religion. Very often you hear people say, I'm not a religious person, but I'm a spiritual person. I'm not religious. No, it's a contradiction. Religion is like the container. It's like the bottle, and spirituality is the content. You can't separate them. because the spirituality is the way you will self-actualize. The spirituality is the way that you will look at yourself, knowing yourself, and in relation to others around you, to the outer, to the world, and all living organisms around you. But the religion is the way that you will organize all your institutions and everything. The religion will be the outward expressions. This is what African societies did. The way they organized, everything was organized religiously, if you want to use that term. Because if you take, for example, the ownership of land, for example, when the European went to the Americas and spoke about my land, the indigenous people found that they couldn't wrap their minds around it. They couldn't. They said that the land belongs to this, to the Great Spirit. They saw themselves as caretakers. African societies, the whole concept of my brother speak about Ubuntu and Ujamaa and all of these, saw the land as there for everyone to benefit. This thing about the acquisition and privatization of land came with the Europeans. So I am saying that what we have to do is to carefully understand that the African conception of religion is not the same as what we have today. When we speak of religion, like what Charlene is talking about, is that is the Western, that is the Eurocentric, right? Because they have separated religion. For them, religion is a private matter. It's something private, right? You don't bring it into the secular or into the so-called secular world. For the African, there is no secular world and no religious world. There's one world of one reality. And that is what we have to get our people to understand, because we mention religion, people become either skeptical or ambivalent towards it, right? Yes, the spirituality, but this is what is important about the spirituality too, because it's not just about, and I'm not going to use religion here. If we look at not just the ideologies, but if I mentioned this before, if we look at many of the psychological theories, whether they're theories advanced by people like Adler, people like Jung, Maslow, many of these people, no matter how well-intentioned some of these educational psychologists are, the psychological theories here are specific to particular people and their experience and their behavior that emerge out of their own culture and in the way they related to us. Right? So when you hear, you can always tell a Eurocentric mind when it says, I am making a Freudian analysis, right? Well, Africans been making so-called Freudian analysis before Sigmund Freud dreamer coming into this world, you know? So the point I'm making here is a lot of, if we continue to use not only ideologies, if we continue to use theologies, if we continue to use educational systems, fix our arrange our educational systems and all these things along the European intellectual tradition and that paradigm, then we are going to remain exactly where we are, because we cannot, we're operating, and if we're talking about spirituality, we're operating with alien spirits, Very often you hear people talk about exercising a demonic spirit. Well, we need literally to exercise the demonic spirit of European hegemony and European indoctrination. We need to. We need to exercise it, and we can't exercise it with their ideology and say we have to exercise it with our own emancipatory spirituality, which is at the core of our theologies and religion. I have no problem with people who reject, if you're rejecting the European. I'm saying that, yes, Africans never use the word sound religion as such. Religion was meant to be a total, the way you organize the economy, your politics, everything was part of your religion.
Okay, thank you. We have Brother Brian there. Can you please introduce yourself and turn on your camera shortly for the discussion? You can turn it off again. Brian? Does anybody know? Do you know who Brian is? No? What of you, Brother Gerald? Do you know who that could be?
Brian, maybe he could be from Guyana. I'm not sure because we know several Brians.
Yes. Okay. So.
Maybe he's one of our activists.
Okay. I don't know if we should we leave him in? Maybe he's having connection problems.
But he's also not answering to when one is writing to him, so
yeah,
it's like a ghost.
Yeah, it was also similar with Sister Afase. She was having problems and couldn't respond.
Yeah, any which way.
Should we, is everybody okay with Brian being there? We don't know, or should we put in the waiting room?
Whatever the host, whatever you decide, brother and sister, brother.
Okay. Okay, so we continue.
Yeah, thank you very much. I also see the problem of definition. That whenever we talk about something, the Eurocentric way of explaining it and executing it,
correct,
is the dominant thing, and everything everything else, even if it's prior in terms of history,
yes,
will fall short on that occasion.
That's right.
But I like your idea of religion being a container.
Yeah.
And spirituality,
the content.
The content. And if we can have a religion where spirituality is the content and dogmatism is not part of that content.
That's right.
Then we would have the possibility of doing a big step forward.
That's right.
For this is actually, if dogmatism comes in, is also oppression and exploitation comes in. You know, we know poor people who just carry all their money they have into the church or to their congregation, wherever they are. And at the end of the day, we have, again, rich and poor people in their own constitutive religious areas they have. So this is not really the idea of a general thing, you know. Yeah. So what I would like to discuss more on is the individual understanding of a religious individual and the religious understanding of what a collective is all about. We had this wholesome, the holistic, the cosmologic idea that everything belongs together, that we have to see everything together. So the collective itself is a part of an even bigger perspective, or holistic perspective in that case. And we have on the other side the religious ideas of individuals, and the more dogmatism we have, the more the individual plays a role in that. This is no more a common understanding, but the individual understanding is about who is right. So maybe we could explore this part of the problem a little bit.
Well, you know, distortion, the hijacking. And so part of it is, in the ancient African, I think you're aware of this, even the Christian tradition where they speak of God the Father, God the Son, and then they speak of the Holy Spirit. And what they did was to remove the female principle there, right? That was a particular time in the ancient tradition. It was the Father, the Mother, and the Son, but that was removed and replaced with the Holy Spirit, which is a serious contradiction, because in that tradition, if God is the Holy Spirit, so why you speak of God the Father, and then He is the Holy Spirit, and then you repeat it again? But what it did was to remove the female principle there. That is with the rise of patriarchy and the male dominance that came in. Now, the issue of take, for instance, salvation, the whole concept of salvation. The African concept of salvation was totally different to what you see that we most of the churches today, especially the Protestant churches, the Protestant and evangelical churches, with this emphasis on individual. We focus on the individual, getting to know, they tell you, get to know Jesus and to know Christ and to find your individuals. This came with the rise of Protestantism in the church in Europe. The African tradition saw salvation as something for the community. It was not just about saving individual souls as such, but it was the whole community understanding what salvation was all about. So my individual salvation could not be divorced from the collective. And because remember, the collective is a totality of persons, and the African never speak of the individual as such. The African spoke of the person. And there's an interesting thing that happened in Europe by people like Jacques Maritain and others. They borrowed, and these are some of the contradictions. Some of the early Catholic church fathers stole the concept of personalism from Africa, because, for example, when Spain, before Spain was unified, the Moors, who were in Spain for more than 600 years, the entire leadership of the Moors, they were Muslims, but they were Africans. The Moors were Africans, who many of them, where they came from Morocco and across from North Africa. Many of the Moors had moved up to North Africa from sub-Saharan Africa. So the history, that is well documented. And the Moors went into Spain. And some of the early church fathers, like Thomas Aquinas and them, they went into Cordoba and the areas that were occupied by the Moors, and they started learning classical Arabic and so they could translate some of the texts. And they found this concept of personalism, and they used it, and they used the term as to separate from this thing about the individual and individualism to form the person. But the human person is shaped too by the community and linked to the community. And they emphasize that away from the liberal tradition of individualism, which the capitalist principle and liberal principle is founded on. So getting back to the issue you mentioned about the collective and so forth thing, today our people are focusing on the church, these evangelical churches, these feel-good theology. People tell them about prosperity, bogus prosperity theology. It's about your individual salvation and building a personal relations with Jesus Christ and knowing Him that would save you. So you don't focus on anything. That is not what salvation is about. Our salvation must be seen that the individual is linked to the collective, and that we have to work together, we have to struggle together for the emancipation. While we collectively struggle for emancipation, in that process, we're emancipating, each and every one of us is emancipating his or herself. So we can't separate. But this, the Protestant tradition, and you see today with the evangelical service, all these evangelical denominations, it's about knowing Christ, and Christ is your personal, you always hear it, your personal savior. And that is not what the early church, the black church, The church, the black church before it was whitened in that Aryanization process was about. Salvation was to the community and the individual was linked to the community. So there was no salvation for the individual outside the community. That is what is there. But when it came, all of that was overthrown and twisted. So with the rise of the Protestant, what Max Weber referred to as the Protestant ethic and the rise of capitalism, you had people like John Calvin and Martin Luther. These two principal reformers, if you really read them, they were oppressors. You know, Martin Luther, the same Martin Luther who nailed the 1990 Thesis on the church and condemned the Catholic Church, right? He became a tool of the German, the Bavarian princess there, right? When they had the peasant wars in Germany, he supported the ruling class. He said that the peasants should know their station in life and should not rebel. You know, he did that. It was Calvin, it was Calvinism that laid the foundation for apartheid. It was Calvinist theological doctrine, bogus theology, that laid the theological foundation and justification for apartheid in South Africa. Yes, and the American foundation, the heart of American white supremacy is the Calvinistic tradition. And that is why you see some of the contradictions that they have in the United States, that most of the white supremacists, if you check the white supremacists, the majority of them are the white supremacist organizations. They're basically Protestants. You will hardly, I've never came across a white supremacist organization that declares itself as white supremacy and racial ideology that is rooted in Catholicism. That is not to say that they're not Catholics who adhere to white supremacy, but most of the white supremacist groups are rooted. The Klan, the Ku Klux Klan, they were all Protestants, came out of the Protestant tradition. In fact, the Klan had a saying. The Klan used to say, to cleanse the place of niggers, Catholics, and Jews. So these are some of the contradictions. But getting back to what my brother said, yep, we have to emphasize that we have to get our people to understand that our salvation, yes, we keep our faith. The faith is our faith. It is faith. It was faith in God/gods, the faith in ourselves, the faith in the struggle that our ancestors took before us, that made it possible for Black people, for Africans to survive. If we didn't, our struggle was waged toward the spiritual struggle. Had Africans, those Africans who were enslaved, who were captured and brought to the so-called New World, had they seen or limited their struggle or understand the struggle purely as a battle being waged on the material plane or on the social plane, they would never have survived. It was understanding the spiritual that kept our people coming. Let me put it in a nutshell. Africans survived the transatlantic horror, the transatlantic genocide. Africans survived everything, enslavement, Jim Crow, the abuse, everything. Africans survived because of their faith, their spirituality. That is what others would have perished, others who did not possess that. And the African is a highly, highly spiritual person. And I make no mistake about it. The African as the creator, as the mother and father of all humanity, all humanity. And that is why we are so caring, so loving. There is no ethnic group, there is no race on this earth that is more loving, that is more caring, that is more forgiving than the African. I mean, the slave masters and women, they had us in our ancestors in their homes, breastfeeding their children when the mothers couldn't do it, cooking their food, and yet we had the opportunity to poison them. We could have poisoned them, and many didn't do it. They found other ways of resisting and so.
Okay, thank you very much, Brother Gerald, for that.
Welcome, brothers. Brother Mario.
Saint Fleur, yeah. Can you switch on your camera shortly so for the others to see you, Mario? And we have also, yes.
1 second.
Yeah, no problem. We have also at the side Charlene with a longer thread of questions regarding a hierarchy of poor and powerful. How we, yeah, maybe I read it. I have another question, but please be warned that I know very little about the Nile Valley history. Could it not be argued that the fault we accuse the Europeans of recreating hierarchies of power is not a basic human weakness that we, all humans, always have to be self-reflective and vigilant about? Did the Nile Valley not create hierarchies of powers? And is not the story of the Nazarene, which is so appealing to the poor all over the world, not a significant correction of this weakness? And are we, the poor all over the world, not being duped by the capitalists and those loyal to the capitalist matrix who understand the power of that story have cooped it to create their churches?
It continues.
Okay, can I?
Yes.
Yeah. The one on the Nile Valley civilizations creating hierarchies. I think in all, no one can deny that pastoral societies were quite distributive and egalitarian, and that the rise of the urban environment, with the cities, that there was some level of hierarchies and so. But the issue of power, early Nile Valley civilization, I think Chancellor Williams addressed that, and as well as Chancellor Williams and Cheikh Anta Diop, that yes, there were, as the urbanization process started, there were hierarchies, but those hierarchies were somehow very accountable. In African societies, you had the chiefs, you had the council of elders, but they drew their strength apart from their wisdom and knowledge. They did not impose themselves as such on the community or on the collective. Of course, there will always be some level of deviance, social deviance and so, but they had this self-correcting mechanisms. They had a way of correcting themselves. And when we say basic human weaknesses, that is very contestable, because what you see when you speak about basic human weaknesses, we are saying then that you will have to take into account that there is what is called human nature, and there is no such thing as human nature as such, because human beings behave and operate differently in different circumstances under different conditions. There are some human beings who, if they're being tortured, to give names or to provide some information, they will do that under pressure. There are others who will rather die. So what do we mean here by human nature? Is human nature selfish? Is man inherently selfish? I don't think so, right? Because if man was inherently selfish, and I don't want to use that term here, I want to be proper. If the human person or the woman or man is inherently selfish, then I think the human species would have self-destructed a long time ago. A long time ago, we would have self-destructed. So that contradicts this whole thing about basic human weaknesses, because because we have seen, and I think there's a very good point. The Quran brings it out. It's in the Ifa tradition that had it been, if humanity was selfish and uncaring as such, if the majority, if that was inherent in our nature as such, then we as a species would have self-destructed a long time ago. As a species with that. But there is always, and that is what good, that's where the true revolution comes. Because the good people, the inherently righteous people, those who can see draw the line between truth and falsehood, between the right and wrong, and see injustice and oppression, will rise up to correct it, to address that injustice. No? So I don't believe I don't believe that these things are to hog power and all that is a basic human weakness. I don't think so. The early Africans had a way of organizing their societies to prevent the concentration of power. The chief, Shaka Zulu, didn't have, the misreading of Shaka, absolute power. When the chief erred or so, the council of elders would meet in consultation with the people, with the community, or with the tribe, and they will give him X amount of hours or days to move out of the kraal or the hut or wherever he sat. That is how they operated. Good. So I'm thinking basically because, and then you have the story here about the Nazarene, the poor of the world, not a significant, I don't know what you mean here. And is it not the story of the Nazarene, which is so appealing to the poor all over the world? Not a significant correction to this weakness? Well, I think one of the points that we have to understand here is that at the core of all religions have stood up for the downtrodden, for the poor and the oppressed, all, and the marginalized. Every religion have stood up. In Haiti, what some people call Haiti or Haiti, I think Bookman and those who initiated the Haitian Revolution, it looked towards, in their tradition, knew that injustice and oppression and enslavement was alien to their religion and to their spirituality. And they armed themselves, they were prepared, they had a spirituality of liberation. And they call upon their God, which is the God of justice, which is the same God at the heart of the Bible and the Quran, and is the same God at the heart, that the same God who sent Moses, a black man, to go down to Egypt and to free the Hebrews, who were Africans too, right? But then there was to free them. So what Bookman and them, when Bookman said the white God, the white man's God, he was talking about a God that is alien to their tradition, this God of oppression. How can this God that the white man speaks of allows this injustice and this oppression? So he was clear about this white God. And this white God is not the God. This white God is not the God of Moses, of all the prophets of Abraham, of Prophet Muhammad, of the Yoruba, the Ifa traditional. That is not the same God. That is the God of the white man. That is the God that sanctions, the false God, that sanctions injustice and oppression. But as I said, all the religions at the core, every religion speaks about the dignity of the human person, freeing the human being from all forms of oppression, not just physical oppression, economic and political, but also spiritual oppression. It's at the core. And the powerful, the elites, whether it was the political elites or the ecclesiastical elites, the religious authorities, the established religious authorities at the time fought Jesus. They fought Abraham, they fought Moses, they fought Prophet Muhammad, because they wanted the old order. They were using false religion to reinforce and justify the then existing order. And when they realized that those messages were spreading and they could no longer defeat them from outside, what they did was to enter inside to defeat them. And that is why what we refer to as the hijacking of religion, of liberatory true religion. And today those hijackers are still here. We have the modern day hijackers who are the spiritual heirs and descendants of those people. Because as Martin Luther King said, any religion that doesn't address injustice and oppression and speaks about emancipation, not just from spiritual bondage, but from physical bondage, from abolishing the social and economic inequalities, then it is a false religion. And that is the religion that the capitalists and the exploiters use. That is the religion that some Arab supremacists are using. That is the religion that the bogus Christian theologians, in whatever color they come, are using. And that is the religion and alien spiritualities that we have to resist.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, we welcome here Brother Mario Saint-Fleur. And maybe you would like to also contribute, as you are from Haiti.
Yes. Yes, good afternoon, everybody, and I'm sorry for being late. And yes, what Brother has said earlier, he's absolutely right about Bookman. And religions, it was the main problem in Haiti back in 1750, I believe it was 1798, before our revolutions. And when we took over around 1801, and that's when we decided not to have any religions in Haiti, but voodooism. Voodooism is the main religion of our culture in Haiti. But the brother is absolutely right about Bookman. Bookman was the man, even before 1798, even that, Bookman used to travel to Jamaica, spreading the knowledge of voodooism from Haiti to Jamaica. So that's what I would like to say in that regard earlier. But yes, Haiti was the main country when it comes to religions. We did not want to have any religions in Haiti due to the fact that of what the French have done prior.
That's right. And what is interesting about Haiti is people don't understand that, it's also, there are a lot of Catholics in Haiti. And the people of Haiti voted for Jean-Bertrand Aristide, who's a Catholic priest. And he wrote that book in the parish of the poor. And he was preaching liberation theology. Absolutely. He was preaching that, and he was able to relate, that liberation theology in the Christian context that he was preaching, he saw the parallels, he was able to see in voodoo, it was there. Because as I said, all of them, all the African traditions the African tradition there was meant to be no priestly caste, no one standing between the creator, whatever the name you use for him or her, right? And the human person, his creation. So there was that there was ways for you to communicate with the creator. But of course, with the rise of the division of labor, as I pointed out earlier, and these different sectors start emerging in society, the commercial class, the laboring class, the priestly class, and all of that. So those who became the priestly class appropriated, right, the text, and they became the clergy. They became the authority. So they were the ones who started the mystification of the word, the mystification of all of the fundamental tenets of the religion and so, right? And very often they were there to justify the ruling class's position, and to give some sort of theological and religious buttress to it. But then, of course, they would be eventually challenged. They were challenged because the truth is there, and people know that that this was false religion. So, I mean, you only have to look at the American tradition of people like Gabriel Prosser and Denmark Vesey and Nat Turner. You know, they knew, they said, no, this Christianity that this white man teaching here is this God he teaching about is not the God we know. But they rebelled, and they were practicing liberation theology in a lovely way. They were they were attacking places and smashing white heads and taking the heads off. And that's what Moses did. That's what was done in the Old Testament tradition. And that's the tradition that we have to reclaim.
Yo, Sister Lerato.
Yeah, so speaking of reclaiming that, right? I'll just quickly go back on religion versus spirituality, and how you explained it so well today for me about it being a container and what's the contents of the container. But because religion as we know it today has been so contaminated, and it's just so repelling, so to speak, and the spirituality has almost been taken out of that bottle. So for me, I find that referring to it as spirituality, I always counter with, I'm not religious, but I am spiritual. And I think it is something that could also help to bring back to reclaim it. And because I do believe that a lot of people has actually come to reject a religion, right? And also the fact that all of these religions have got origins in African culture and spiritualities, it's lost to many.
Yeah.
So I think for me, it has always been like using the word as spirituality, and a person is spiritual because also that embodies everything about religion. It kind of like switches, like you said, religion, it encompasses all of these things. But it's the word spirituality for me that really encompasses all. Only just to move away from this negativity that comes with religion that has been like changed and dogmatized, and is completely something that really, I think I understand what Sister Charlene is saying. Like, she don't even want to hear anything about when you say religion, you just totally cut off, people, and you don't want to hear about it. And like I said, also for me earlier on, it was almost like you had to, in order to save myself and to reconnect with my spirituality and my ancestors, I had to completely cut off what we know as religion today.
Sister, Kwame Ture, the great Pan-African revolutionary Kwame Ture, he always said that, we have to work and we have to be where our people are. We have to make sure, those of us who are present now in this platform, this forum, we have to make sure that, where we are, we're in a different place and space to the masses of our people. And we have to always make sure that as much as we are trying to provide guidance and to move our people, we have to move with them in a particular direction. We have to make sure that we are not so far ahead or so way ahead that we have lost track with them. Very important, or else we'll be talking to ourselves. And our struggle, it will be reduced to an academic discourse. People involved in real struggle will see that all these things will be thrown up. So we have to see where our people are and where we have to reach them. Yes, you're right, but the ground is what we have to show, what we have to reclaim is that religion and revolution goes together, and that religion is liberatory. And we have to show our people that what they're operating with is false religion. False religion. We just can't toss the whole thing out, because we're not, if we do that, then we're in serious trouble. Okay? James Cone did that. For example, every, you know, many years ago, when they started at the founding of the African, before it was the African Union, the Organization of African Unity, Jamal Abdel Nasser from Egypt met with Kwame Nkrumah. And he met, and there was a meeting too with Modibo Keita, a great leader from Mali. And they were talking about this continental unity, right? And you had Algeria at the time and so on later on. And a lot of African revolutionaries who were fighting the frontline states, who were fighting South Africa, the Portuguese in Mozambique and Angola, they used to go to, some of them used to go to Algeria for training under the leadership then of Ben Bella, because they just won the struggle and liberation against the French. And some of them met with Nasser, and Nasser said he saw the event where Muslims go annually to circumambulate the Kaaba, where they go around the Kaaba. He said that would be a great event for Muslims who are fighting injustice and oppression, for people to go, right? And share ideas and to meet. It would be a point of convergence. That's what he was talking. He saw it as that is what it should have been. That was the original purpose of it. But today it has been reduced to just a ritual with no meaning. People just go, they go wrong, and all of that, you know? And I'm just giving you that example, right? Now, every time there's the crucifix, for example, in the Christian tradition, you have Easter and they speak about the crucifixion. And what did the church do? They regurgitate the same thing, that Jesus was suffered under Pontius Pilate or Pontius Pilate, and he was crucified. But how do you translate that? What has the crucifixion of Jesus to do with the concrete realities and suffering of Africans today? That is how you got to do it. And James Cone addressed that. The suffering, the cross, the Africans have bore and carried the cross. Literally, Simon of Cyrene helped Jesus with the cross. He was an African from Libya. When Jesus fell with the cross, Simon of Cyrenaica, which they call Cyrenaica in Libya today, during the Italian time, a black man, an African, helped Jesus with the cross. So there was a black man helping another black man to carry the cross, right? But the problem with us is that we today, unlike Simon of Cyrenaica carrying a black man carrying the cross of another black man, a black prophet, we are carrying the cross of another people, right? And we don't understand anything about the cross we are carrying. So the cross is not, they like to tell you, oh, the cross is about suffering. The cross is, yes, about suffering, and black people, Africans have suffered a lot. But the cross must also become a symbol of liberation, emancipation, right? It's not about feel good and the cross and just bless yourself. Good? So the point I'm trying to make here is we have to see, because our people are very religious, and we have to know how we're addressing such a sensitive issue. And this is where the black church came in. This is where the black church emerged in America. And that is why you saw that when they had the early civil rights, long before the civil rights struggle, I spoke about people like Gabriel Prosser, then Mark Vesey, and those people who were, you know, Deacon Paul Bogle in Jamaica, and all of these, and, you know, people who were rising up and using the Bible and being guided by the Bible as a book for liberation, you know, they were doing that. So that is what led to the black churches. You saw the black churches with the rise of the civil rights movement, Martin Luther King and all of that, and then the rise of black theology in America, James Cone and all of these people who wrote God of the Oppressed, Black Power and Black Power and Black Liberation and what have you, you know. And that's where we have to take this battle from. That's where we have to take it. We just can't dump it, because The minute you start to hit at it, people might think, well, oh, the first thing they come, those who are not well, they say, well, you don't believe in God? Are you an atheist? And all of that. You know, and I want to mention this. I don't want to be too long. You know, many years ago, a delegation, and this is an interesting point, a delegation from Cuba was visiting Iran in the early days of the Iranian Revolution. And there was a great Iranian scholar by the name of Ayatollah Talagani. He has passed on. And he met this Cuban delegation, and he said to the Cubans, he said, do you know that what you are fighting for and what we are fighting for is the same thing? You're fighting against injustice, you're fighting against oppression, you're fighting for human equality and dignity. He says, and we are fighting for the same thing. He was different. This was a different Ayatollahs. They're not all the same, different to the others, right? He had a big falling out with them. So I'm telling you why. And he said to the Cuban delegation, he said, the only thing we differ on is you believe in dialectical materialism. You're Marxists and we are not. That we believe there's a spiritual side to human existence and human civilization. And then he said that since you are fighting for the same thing like us, he said there's a verse in the Quran that says that even if you kill an unbeliever, meaning you don't have to be a Muslim, and an unbeliever doesn't mean someone who's a non-Muslim. No. An unbeliever is an atheist. If you follow the Ifa tradition or Yoruba or Christianity or whatever, you are a believer, right? So he was using believer here to mean a believer who believes in the Creator as non-atheist. He wasn't speaking of believer to be Muslim, you had to be a Muslim. And he said that in the verse in the Quran says that if you shed the blood of anyone who's fighting against injustice and oppression, even if that person is not a Muslim, even if he's an atheist, it's like shedding the blood of the prophets. So you see that? You see that? So a true believer, if you're a true believer, if you're a real Christian, if you claim if you really understand your faith, if you're a Muslim or whatever, right? It's not about, oh, you're Muslim, you're Christian, because this battle in the world is primarily between truth and falsehood. And in the battle for truth, we are going to find Christians, we're going to find Muslims, we're going to find people from every other, the Yoruba and all of those fighting for truth. And in the camp of falsehood, we're going to find a lot of Muslims, a lot of Christians, and a lot of others. You understand? You see it? This is what you're going to find, right? Because we black people, and we have to understand that as Africans too, that we don't suffer on this planet as Malcolm X said, right? We don't suffer because we are elk or because we are Muslim or because we are Christian or because we suffer because we're Africans, right? We suffer because we're black people. You know, when they see us, they don't say, oh, look, there goes a Muslim, there goes a Jew, there goes a, no, there goes a nigga, there goes a black man, there goes a black woman. So we have to build some type of racial unity and solidarity and realize that this battle that we are going to fight, we're not going to get, as Malcolm X said, not all blacks will be all Africans or all black people will be our brothers and sisters in this struggle. We'll have to move a lot of them out of the way in the process, in this struggle for our emancipation, total emancipation.
Okay, thank you for that insight. I wanted to have a remark on the hierarchy issue that raised by Charlene. For I also have the feeling it also fits into the truth and like category. For hierarchies are not a weakness, but yes, they are very natural and very complex.
Correct.
Yes, so you might have social hierarchies, intellectual hierarchies, you might have age hierarchies, and what we have imported sort of is gender hierarchies and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But what the wrong hierarchy is at that connection is the monolithic hierarchy, like Gerald was describing it, of those who collect the money. For the money is now also the source for those being poor. They are poor, for they are exploited. They are not poor by nature. They are poor because they are exploited from monolithic hierarchy that is collecting money on the top and drying out the bottom as much as they can.
Correct.
So we also have to try to see that hierarchies is also a source of checks and balances. So it's not a king, is not someone who can do whatever he wants.
Correct.
A king is a leader,
yes.
and the main thing he has to do is to consult.
That's right.
With the people. So I mean, also this understanding of a democracy that has been in place long ago, and that has now been overthrown by different understanding of what a monarchy is all about.
That's right.
What a king as a leader or as a master, more to say, shifted in that oppressive direction. This is how everything was taken over bit by bit, and we have to reassess and regain our ideas of what that hierarchy is not a bad thing in the first place, that is a natural thing, and that we can even use it in our fight for. It also means every individual, every person has other capacities that can be brought into our struggle to unify. So we should make use of these natural hierarchies and avoid a monolithic, easy way of understanding and connecting it to even the understanding of power is now a single person instead of a collective, of a nation, of a unity, to understand that the power is like Ubuntu with all of us, not with one. Yeah, this is what I wanted to say, that hierarchy is not necessarily a weakness, but it's natural. Yeah,
I can add to that. This comes to when we talk of the Afrocentric versus the Eurocentric, where you have the dichotomous as compared to the diunital, where everything is either power or not having power, either black or white. All these things. Then we come to, we are using definitions and we're using language and terms which have heavily loaded and have a certain meaning in a certain context, in an Eurocentric context. So sometimes this leads to a confusion when we talk of king. In my language, for example, the word king in the traditional language is meaning something else as what I see the Europeans call king. Yeah. And how they talk of power, all these things in my language is totally different. A king is not somebody who sits and, has all the others bow to him and he gets richer and richer. A king is something else. He serves, you were saying,
Yes.
So even, or things like the devil, what they call devil, I don't know it in my language. I know there is a spirit, there is a certain energy which creates a chaos.
Yes.
In order to reset some disorder. But this concept, the way it is there as a devil, I don't know it.
Yes.
You know, so I think also in our process, even the discussions we're having now of religion or spirituality is actually a matter of decolonizing language, you know.
Yeah. Well said. Agreed. Well said, sister. You know,
beautiful, beautiful, very important topic that is persistent enslavement, systemic trauma, as it leads also to the fear of traditional religions like voodoo.
Yeah.
Can you say something on that shortly before we close? And then, as I said, this is a topic in itself, and we're going to do that, the impact of slavery and colonialism on our people.
I just want to say something briefly on what my brother just pointed out. He's absolutely correct. You know, take for example, during the period, because we were talking about revolution and and religion and how revolution will transform our, to achieve our total emancipation. There was a time when you had in China, Mao Zedong, Chairman Mao Zedong, and you had the Cultural Revolution in China. And of course, Mao Zedong made a great contribution in terms of the emphasis on self-reliance, a country depending on its own people and resources to achieve their goals and so, rather than looking outside. But something happened during the Cultural Revolution, because during Mao's period, what the Cultural Revolution did, they wanted to dismantle everything for them, the past. So they even started attacking the past. They attacked the Confucian tradition and everything, right? And there was a lot of the particular period, even in the military, the Chinese military, they abolished all ranks. There was no hierarchy, military ranks. There were no generals, no colonels, no majors. There was just people given certain jobs. And the Cultural Revolution had its positives, but it created also tremendous disaster. And of course, after Mao Zedong died and his widow and others were imprisoned and so on, then the rectification process, and look where China is today, because the new Chinese leadership went back into their past. They went back into the past that the Cultural Revolution wanted to destroy many of us. They went into that and they started and they moved forward. But notice the Chinese always speak, when they speak today, they speak about, even when they talk about Marxism or socialism, they said socialism with Chinese characteristics. That's what they say. So they went into the past, they reclaimed, they revisit the Confucian tradition, which is part of their culture, part of their heritage, and they move forward. And they expose the weaknesses and so on, right? Because we saw where that during the Cultural Revolution, to dismantle hierarchies and to break down all those things, it led to total chaos. It was chaotic, and many lost their lives. Many lost their lives. So yes, the brother explained what hierarchy in the African sense was all about, and the sister mentioned what was the role of the king, and that the king, the concept of a king as a ruler, is completely different to the way the Europeans conceptualize it. Totally agree with you. About voodoo, and I see Charles speaks about Santeria. Well, it's known, it has different names. Macumba, I think, in Brazil, Obi in Guyana, Shango in Trinidad, voodoo, Santeria. All of these, I mean, today in this part of the world is very syncretic, because my brother from Haiti know that people, many Haitians, you can correct me if I'm wrong, Aisha, Africans in Haiti, they can have a voodoo ceremony today, but they can also go to church on Sunday. Am I right?
Sir, yes, sir, you're absolutely right. Absolutely.
Yeah. And there is this, they have their own way of blending and harmonizing, and they have the what you call, I don't want to use the equivalence. For every Catholic saint, they have one, the equivalent in voodoo.
Yes, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
But this Hollywood, this European nonsense that Hollywood created about, you know, the movies they made about voodoo, the voodoo doll and striking, that's all the people in this part of the world know about, you know, that nonsense that was that Hollywood put out there, you know. And as the sister pointed out, this concept of the devil is all about that negative force that seeks to intervene, disrupt the harmony of things, or to distract the person, the individual, from that spiritual path, that rightful spiritual path that the Quran refers to as the straight path, you know, because in our struggles as we pursue that path, there is distractions and negative energies and forces coming from every angle, right, to prevent us from achieving our mission. And they can come in many manifestations, you know.
If I may, my brother, sorry to cut you off, Brother Gerald.
Yeah.
To us, when it comes to the devil, it was anything that is the contrary of voodooism.
That's right.
Devil to us.
That's right. That's right. Absolutely. Yeah. So, you know, there are many, the devil can come in, that devil or the energy, that so-called devil or the energy that the sister spoke of, can come in the form of multi-partyism, you know, that has, and liberal democracy that has created more, or liberal democracy that has created more problems for Africa than anything else, right? I mean, for example, when we had one-party states during the time of Nkrumah and Keita, we had more political stability. We had political stability. Then they brought in the West, imposed all this multi-party nonsense, right? So every time, for example, when the people in Namibia go to the polls, 140 parties are in the electoral list. You see? And they call that democracy, but what they're doing is destroying, weakening our various societies and countries. That is what they do. Because there was a particular period when the West came in and they were wanting people to form political parties. I'm just showing you, this is just part of that so-called devil or alien thing that are preventing our people from achieving what we want. Unity, continental unity, and unity and emancipation, the emancipation of our oppressor, the liberation of the African on the motherland and in diaspora. So we have all of these distractions, and energies. We have them, right? We have the leaders who believe that our salvation lies in going to the IMF and World Bank, you know. And that's how we have to talk about our people when we are going to talk about religion or spirituality. We don't want to make it an abstraction, right? Because we can see the devil is not somebody with horns and the trident poking fire, right? The devil, I see the IMF bureaucracy as devils. You know, that's the devil. White supremacy is the devil, right? We live in a world when 1% of the population, when in 2017, 1% of the wealthiest accumulated 80% of the world's wealth for themselves. That's demonic. That's the devil. It's not something mythical. So that's how we have to relate that's how we have to preach religion or spirit to our people. We have to make it very relevant, very concrete, and remove from the abstract and that dogmatism that the brother pointed out earlier.
Okay, thank you very much. This was a very nice final conclusion, I feel. We took more time, but it's important time from my understanding, and the discussion, although we are only 6 parties, was very, very influential, I hope, for everybody.
And I would like to say, please leave your email address if we don't have it already, so that we can inform you when there are future events.
Yes, this is what I wanted to say actually right now. And also to ask Brother Gerald to provide a list of all the things you have mentioned today, all the books and authors.
I will do that.
Yeah. So
I will send it to you and you can send it out. Yes, I will.
So we can even add that at the Facebook video as an information that people more clearly understand what your points are about, you know. And this part of the of our discussion, which is also
very educative.
Was also very educative. Those who want to have it, they should please write to us at academy@blackcommunitycoalition.de, and we can upload and transfer this part for private. For we don't want to.
And if you feel it is okay, then we can also put it online.
Yes.
So
Go ahead.
If you don't want it, if you don't mind it being online, you can indicate it to us.
It's a property of the people. It's a
Okay.
I am just standing on the shoulders of those who came before me.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
I feel also that maybe a second part to this, it could be useful, and you know, there's still so much, because the discussion for today brought in so many other things, other views, which kind of like made it accumulate some more. So I'm still hungry for more.
It's exactly what I thought. So I thought the same thing, funnily. I thought, no, this has to continue, you know? Yeah. This topic is not yet exhausted.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so important. It's so important. And actually, I think our people are also afraid of the topic.
Mm-hmm.
I think I agree with you.
Because it's a very, very conflicted one, very sensitive, highly explosive. So I think, yes, we have to continue with this topic.
Okay. Okay, so nobody seems to have a problem with it, and we cut out this second part of the discussion and add it under the Facebook event. And we keep in contact to see how we could define a second goal on this matter. Yeah.
Also, I just want to say, please keep up the work at the Black Community Coalition.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you so much.
I know it's not easy organizing and doing the kind of work you're doing there.
No, it's not, but we are together.
Yes, yes.
We are together, and we are thankful for that we have each other like this, you know?
Yeah, that's right, that's right.
Also across continents is fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
So.
Yes. All right, Sister Loretta, Brother Mario.
Thank you, brother.
Everybody else, Charlene, everybody. Yeah, my brother.
Pleasure, my brother Gerald. Pleasure.
Yeah, you too. Stay strong.
You too, my brother. Thank you.
One African love.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. All right.